Earliest memory on a bike. Pretty much, yeah. I guess besides, I don't know, probably can't remember being on a trike. My Oma taught me how to mountain bike or just ride a bike. Just remember, yeah, her pushing me through the yard and I don't know, a couple dirties, a couple dirties. But yeah, for some reason, I just yeah, kind of ingrained in my mind. My Oma chasing me around. My mom had the camcorder going, so it's pretty hilarious to see that old footage.
Brought to you by Thule, this is You Inspire Us, inspiring stories about all things bike. I'm Elliot Jackson, a bike ambassador for Thule, and today I'm speaking to Kurt Sorge, who is, in my opinion, the greatest big mountain rider of all time. He's one of the founders of the Fest series. He's filmed iconic videos and photos in some of the most remote and stunning places in the world, and he is a 3-time winner of Red Bull Rampage. Kurt, welcome to You Inspire Us. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I think it's really interesting, actually, that you have never done a podcast before.
Nope, been I don't know, successful at avoiding it until now.
It's so funny, actually, that you say successful, because that was like one of the things as I was like kind of doing some research. Well, not only do I feel like I have a bunch of new favorite photos, but that you are not like, you keep a pretty low profile.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't love being in front of the camera all the time, and I like to work on projects and certain things to produce kind of the highest quality possible. So yeah, try and just yeah keep it quality, not quantity. But yeah, you know.
For sure. Maybe we could start about, I'd love for you to tell me a little bit about Nelson. Like, how was it growing up there? Like, how did you get into bikes? I just find that place so fascinating.
Yeah, Nelson's a really cool little town nestled in the mountains and right along Kootenai Lake and river. And yeah, growing up here it was great, but yeah, I was mostly into team sports. Didn't really know about action sports at all, and yeah, it wasn't until one of my best friends showed up to school with this fancy cross country bike, and I had no idea. I was like, "What is this thing?" Um, and then yeah, kind of just started to learn about a bit of the bike culture and the snowboard and ski culture around here, and yeah, just ended up being like a mecca for outdoor adventure and activities. And definitely once I kind of branched away from Nelson, realized how lucky I am to actually call this home.
Yeah, man. I mean, was there ever a time when you thought that you might, go into snowboarding or one of the other sports there?
Yeah, like at first, yeah, I was like, it was like I said, team sports, soccer, I don't know, cross country running, all this, and then kind of had the option to either like go into hockey or snowboarding, and yeah, chose snowboarding. And before I was really into mountain biking, I was more of a snowboarder and absolutely loved it. And you'd meet up with all your friends up there, and or hitch rides with your friends' parents, and just be free on the mountain. It was amazing. And yeah, so snowboarding was kind of like my first real love until I really got onto a mountain bike, and yeah, that quickly changed after that first real experience on a mountain bike.
Do you remember what that was? Like, was there a time when you were just like, oh yeah, this is obviously what I'm going to be doing?
Well, there was like the very first instant we actually went up to Silver Star just as kids. We had fully rigid bikes, but we went to go visit some family, and my uncle and cousin were like, "Oh yeah, like we race bikes." Like, okay, cool. And we go down into their shop, and they had a Stab Deluxe and Stab Primo, like those very first
Yeah,
ones.
totally.
I was just like, what are these? These are insane. Like, and like, yeah, we were riding the chairlift. It was back when it was just like the little 2-seater, and you like hung your bike with like a rope on
Right.
the chair. And yeah, I got to take out the Stab Primo for some laps. And I think I like after that trip, I told my parents like, biking's my new favorite sport. Like that's what I want to do. And yeah, kind of just progressed from there. Really, just got my first mountain bike hardtail. Kind of quit playing team sports a bit more, and just fell in love with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny you say that. My first the thing that really made me want to start riding mountain bikes was going up to Whistler for the first time and like getting on the chairlift, like riding these trails and stuff like that. And it is really interesting to me, like thinking about the different parts of BC, like where you have like more Western BC, and it's almost become like slopestyle. Like you have, Simonuk and all those dudes over there, and then like Nelson, you guys, like at one point there was what, like 8 or 9 people in Rampage that were all in Nelson. Like, what is it about Nelson that kind of birthed that like big mountain style of riding? It seems like.
Yeah, like we never had a BMX racetrack. We didn't have kind of any of that stuff. There was a lot of early mountain bike trail building going on,
Hmm.
and it's all pretty rugged around here, pretty steep and rocky, rooty. So the only trails that existed were steep and chunky and janky.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything easy to ride, and so I think that kind of like started, kind of shaping the kind of mountain bikers that were coming from here. And when I was growing up, it was like the first like freeride mountain bike movies, like the movement was happening, and
Right. Right.
there was like a couple different generations in front of me that were really giving her like
Hmm.
like freeride entertainment was here. So you got Robbie Borden, Mike Kinrad, Joe Schwartz, and Neural Disorder 1 comes out, and they're jumping off of roofs and
Right.
just going absolutely wild. And then there was a generation kind of in between them and me that they were the next young crew coming up, and they're just going crazy in Nelson, launching off anything they could find or building crazy stunts. And yeah, we just didn't really have anything, I don't know, easy. And then we were looking up to guys like Robbie and Mike Kinrad
Yeah.
that are just full send. And it wasn't until just like is it 10 years maybe now that they finally started building some machine built up tracks or dual direction trails that now you can get anyone out on.
And so you guys were just like literally hiking to the top of the gnarliest thing you could find and trying to ride it.
Yeah, like there's tons of old mining roads and logging roads around here, so you'd be pushing your downhill or free ride bike, whatever you had, up these logging roads just to get up to these trails. And then we had a couple free ride spots like Fort Shepherd. It's just like a old riverbed basically. And they filmed Crank 1, Crank 2 there, Dave Sweatland and Chris George and all those guys were sending it down there. So we as kids we would go out there and we're riding, trying to ride just like they were.
Totally. And so I feel like there was almost not really a path in terms of like so those dudes had kind of like set this path in terms of, okay, we can go out, we can film these videos and things like that. But you had like different parts of mountain biking, like you had the slope style and kind of the race scene. Was your goal to kind of say, oh, I love riding these big mountains, like I really want to go and do a bunch of video parts? Or was it not even a choice at that point? Was it just like, I just want to ride the coolest stuff I can find and maybe travel to find some new stuff and kind of push myself further?
Yeah, I really fell in love with it through the movies. I think like really loved how, you waited all year to see the new stuff. And it's really seemed like, there wasn't much of a structure. Like, this is how a jump's built, or this is how the drop is. It's like everything was so unique, all the crazy builds that were going on. And kind of just wanted to do that along with building, like, going as big as you can and, learning some tricks. You had like John Cowan and, these guys that were bringing the tricks into it. And that really had a good draw for me. So, whether we were building dirt jumps in random places and just, trying whatever kind of tricks, we could do, and jumping off of roofs. But and there wasn't really that. It hadn't really gone to like slope style or dirt jump contests. I feel like when I was first getting into it, it was still more about like the kind of free ride film vibes. And that's really what I fell in love with.
Yeah. And so maybe tell me a little bit about like what is it that makes like a perfect big mountain line? Like, tell me about some of the cool places that you've been, because I think that the travel is as much a part of like big mountain biking as anything else.
Yeah, definitely like feel like I kind of started like getting into it through Big Mountain, and the guys, were riding down to Utah, or those early Cranked movies, they're going to Morocco or wherever, and just like being able to travel to some of these locations looked incredible. And definitely been fortunate enough to be a part of a few projects, and then now producing my own projects and planning my own trips. And
do you have a favorite line that you think back on, like in the last, I don't know, 10 years or so?
Yeah, fortunately, the last couple trips I've done have kind of like just blown almost everything out of the water. There's been so many good lines, it's hard to even think about, and feel very lucky. But I went down to Peru with Jeff Golovich last September, and I'd been looking at this zone and at this one line on Google Earth for years. We're supposed to go before COVID, and then the trip got delayed, and we were finally able to pull it off last year. And it's like almost it's like almost a 4,000 foot vertical line, and it like started, so it's super tall and big, steep, rocky chute at the top, and then kind of opened up and then funneled back into this kind of crazy red Utah looking dirt, and then opened up again, and just looked so good. And
that's wild.
So we traveled down to Peru, and the whole trip, like 2.5 weeks, is building up to this one line. And we got to find the line first, and we get on top of the mountain, and huge hike. You're hiking at elevation, we're at like 5,000 meters, and
oh my God.
And middle of nowhere, and just thinking you're right, like on top of the right line, and just hoping it goes, and you're not gonna like tons of exposure at the top, like you're kind of like going through this kind of S-bendy chute at the top through all this rock, and mandatory left-hander at the bottom to exit, and you gotta be like, you just gotta be confident, worst case scenario, you're tomahawking off this mandatory cliff, and in the middle of nowhere. And but that line was just it worked out so good, and it was so fun. Ended up being able to do it a second time, and like the lines are so big, typically I'd like to hike most of them, so you kind of have eyes on everything, but some of these big lines, it's just like, it would take too long. And like,
so you're doing it blind a lot of the time, like
you're trying to get like as best vantage points as you can beforehand, like whether you're taking pictures from afar or just trying to look down it. And so after the first time I rode it, I was able to look back up and see a different line. And that's one thing about, like, I don't know, what keeps it so exciting is like, you are kind of going in blind and improvising on your way down. And so the second time I got to do it, I rode the chute and got to ride it way faster, and like scare myself. And then once I came out of the exit, I just like hooked a hard right, traversed over to the next chute, and it just like it was better than I could even imagine. Like got onto a ridge, a couple natural doubles, and then just into the chute, and then a few more like drops, and yeah, just couldn't believe how well it all came together. And
That
definitely, I
is
think it was like,
crazy.
so it didn't have like a big drop at the top or for a flip or a three or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but like riding quality and just like going in blind, yeah, it was perfect. A perfect line, really.
That's so wild. And it's always really interesting to me because the filming stuff that I've done, a bunch of the time, it's like, all right, you do it 6, 7 times or whatever. Like you think about these more like kind of precise moments on a bike, but like not only are you doing the line kind of once, maybe twice, but a lot of the filming is also pretty difficult, like early morning, like high consequence. Like how is that to kind of line up with like the riding's really hard, but then also the filming is really hard to like capture that stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, a lot of the times it's you got one shot, so hopefully you have two filmers and like a drone up. But like on that for that line, it was like ideally you kind of want a straight on kind of Barbie shot of it, but for the cameraman to actually get over there, it would have taken him hours. So you just got to get him into position as best as he can to capture it, and um, yeah, slap a GoPro on and just try and get as many angles as you can. And but yeah, a lot of the times, a lot of these lines, it's like one and done.
Right, right. That's so wild as well. Like you talk about like scouting it out on Google Maps, like going out there for 2 weeks to do it this one time. It really reminds me of more of the ski snowboard style. Um, I don't know. Do you take inspiration from that kind of stuff?
Yeah, totally. I love that stuff so much. It's yeah, definitely a huge inspiration, and yeah, seeing what goes into it, and yeah, quite similar too. It takes so long to either get on top of the line, or you don't. I guess in the snow world, you don't want tracks in the shot. So it's
Right,
kind of
right.
like, but yeah, you kind of only got one shot, or because it takes almost all day just to hike to the top of the thing.
Yeah, that's so crazy. And so I think the other piece of your background that is like fascinating to me and was able to kind of see that progression was you guys founding the Fest series. And maybe just like tell me a little bit about how that came about, like why that came about even and what it is.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like we were kind of first talking about, like got into riding through the videos, and then once I kind of got my break into the industry, it went more to the dirt jumps and slopestyle contests like you were talking about, and there wasn't much big mountain events going on. Rampage had taken a break, and so then, and like I did like the dirt jump and slopestyle stuff. It was definitely helped me progress my riding lots, and being able to bring that kind of type of riding to the big mountain was always kind of a goal. But I definitely got wrapped up into competing at slopestyles and dirt jump events, and never really was there to win, but I did like being there, and trying to do my best. And I really like the early contest too, where it was like multiple line choices, and you could ride a downhill bike, free ride bike, hardtail, or slopestyle bike. So then once it kind of some of these events, the courses just weren't really catering to what we wanted, and yeah, so then the Fest series was created. We were invited over to Norway to ride at Hillbilly Huckfest, hosted by Macken. So there was a good crew there, but there was Graham Agassi, Nico Vink, Andrea Lacondi, um, in Maaken, and we just had so much fun. It was like more bigger jumps, freestyle moto ramps, and we rode all week. There was the festival, bit of a show, and afterwards we're just like, that was the most fun ever. And we actually felt like we got to progress our riding a bit too by doing tricks on these bigger jumps, and we're like, we need to do more of these. We need to have one all over the place. So that was kind of how it was born. And yeah, it was just so we could create courses that we wanted to ride, basically.
Yeah, man. And you say bigger jumps, but like they're like 80, 70, 80, 90 feet, like bigger jumps than kind of anyone was doing at the time, and especially anyone was doing tricks over. Um it it's it was crazy to see, I feel like, from the outside. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It was insane.
Yeah, it was pretty cool because the like the feedback we got was amazing. Like, everyone was loving it. I think the first couple of years we had it, I think Aggie's Reunion won Event of the Year over Joyride and Rampage on
Right.
Pink's bike, and I think the next year it was Cruise Fest. And yeah, some of the jumps were massive, but every event was hosted by an athlete. So I hosted mine, so I would organize it and I would build the course how I'd want. So there was the courses did vary quite a bit, so I like the jumps at my course are like between 50 and 60, but quite a bit steeper. But then you got Nico Vink building 90-foot jumps and going bigger than anyone really thought possible, and just making it more casual. And it was really cool those first few years. It was we had created our own event series that the industry took seriously.
Yeah. Was that, it seems like it started as like you said, just like, okay, this is what we love to do. It's so much fun, kind of like going back to that idea of just getting together with your friends, like building something cool. Was there ever a goal to have it be, I don't know, like to have that be the new contest? Did you guys think of it as a contest?
No, we didn't want it to be that contest vibe. So there was no runs. It was so the format would kind of be a week long, and like a lot of the times when we would go to these contests, you're back and forth from the hotel and the contest venue. You don't really even get to experience the place.
Right.
So that was another thing. We'd go to Norway and we'd get to go check out Hafjell, or we'd go check out all the local swimming holes and just like check out some local trails. There's just you'd got a lot more out of the whole trip and get to experience more of like the hosting athletes home. And
it does feel like you guys were pretty deliberate about that. Like each person that hosted, it was kind of their personality in a course, but then also, like you said, you guys would take everyone around, like do activities outside of it and things like that. And at the beginning, didn't you guys have there was like no media there, or like something like that? Like you guys really curated what came out of it?
Yeah, like it was started 2013, 2014, I guess. But like social media was still pretty huge, but we always wanted to hold on to the content and then like put it all out when the highlight video would come out and make more of a splash,
Right.
We weren't posting tricks and lines as they happened. So we were holding on to everything, and it just seemed like it would be more like there's more value to it instead of just, everyone just putting it out all
Yeah.
willy-nilly,
Willy
so
nilly, totally.
and yeah, so we just wanted to kind of keep that more. Didn't want to just like be like handing it out for free or like handing it out,
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
trying to keep it a little under wraps and then just make the big splash, just kind of like it used to be back in
I
the
was
day.
just
Well,
about to say that.
yeah,
Yeah, like it was almost because you back in the day you waited all year for this video part and you heard of like, oh, Kurt's filming this part and I heard he's doing like X, Y, and Z and you couldn't wait for it. And so there was this, you know, in in terms of reach, but also in terms of almost like a prestige or longevity in seeing something that kind of hadn't been done or something that was super creative. Like it was really like you guys were recreating the video part era almost.
yeah, and we wanted to keep like progressing it as like
Yeah,
like the events weren't really the main goal. It was like
right.
it was just like the way to kind of get it going,
Yeah.
and we wanted to start taking those kind of courses to the backcountry or different
Mm,
venues. Like it wasn't just supposed to be about jumps, and
yeah.
it's just I think just kind of got tough to
Mm,
just getting support was tough.
mm,
We were actually putting in a lot of our own money just to
right.
make the events happen, and then we wanted to have full control of how we ran the event and how we
Right.
produced the content, and so it was like the best. It was so fun, but trying to like manage your own career plus putting on these events and all this
Yeah.
was just it's a lot, but we really
Yeah.
wanted to start maybe like doing these big mountain trips, or just it was a way to kind of start something. But
Yeah.
the events got such a good um it's like people just love the events, so it was hard not to like just keep having those. And then we get to bring new riders in, and
Hmm.
just really good times. And
Yeah. It is so interesting that you say it was hard to get support because it feels, I mean, from the outside it was, I mean, even for me on the racing side, I think for all of us, like everyone in mountain biking was like, oh, this is just the coolest thing. Um, and I don't know if there is kind of like a theme in that with like video part riding, with like kind of traveling and not having something, I don't know, transactional to show like a result or whatever. Like in big mountain riding, like is that is has that path been harder to say like, okay, like getting sponsors, being able to make a living, having to explain to people, this is why this is valuable.
yeah, totally. Like even when I was still doing slope styles, like even if I just got a top 5 or top 10, it seemed like that was a better result than even
Really?
filming for a feature film. Like,
That's so
you know,
wild.
yeah, you're just like, like filming for Neural Disorder or some of the Anthill movies or
Yeah.
TGR. It's like, like that's great. You're in a movie, but how do we, put a value on that? And
Wow. Yeah. Has that changed at all, do you think? Or
I think you just have to, I think it's still pretty tough. Like you just have to really figure out your numbers and I guess views, and like show them the
yeah.
numbers
Right.
in a way that makes sense. But no, it's definitely, especially with social media, I don't know. It's a tough formula.
Yeah.
I definitely don't have it figured out. Maybe some people do, but
Mm.
it's definitely an interesting one to navigate.
Yeah, and there seemed like there was a bit of an era where there were some kind of like big mountain contests coming up, like Chattel was there and stuff like that. Like, did that ever? Did you guys like that? Where it was like, okay, we're gonna actually try to put this form of riding into contest form.
Yeah, Chattel was amazing. Like that was my favorite event I think ever. And that was, pre-fest series. And, I actually ended up, I think the first time I went there, I ended up winning it. So that was like my first real like win. I was like, oh, okay, like cool. And, but that was the only one that was around, and then it kind of got phased out, and I don't know necessarily why it did, but I loved Chatel, and it's kind of like they have the big mountain series in skiing, and now they got natural selection and snowboarding. Like, definitely seems like there's a way to make it happen, but I don't think it's not easy putting on events, as we also found out just through the Fest series. It takes a lot, and it would be cool because then you could, stack up your results next to other people, and it would be easier to show companies, your worth. But at the same time, I do like being on our own program, having a tight crew, and we're all, working together. And it would be nice to have the big mountain contest and like everything and have everyone there. But at the same time, I kind of prefer just being out there with our own crew and just a smaller scene.
Yeah. So, like, speaking about the contests, I definitely want to dive into Rampage a little bit. You've crushed it there, and maybe to start, I feel like people know what Rampage is and they think of the finals day, but can you give a little bit of an overview of just like the contest format? And just like talk about kind of the vibe overall before we kind of get into your results and like finals day and stuff.
Yeah, sure. I'll try and describe it. Like, in the early days, I think they, you just go up there and they kind of move a couple of rocks and put a couple little sticks, and they would just send it. But it's progressed a long way, especially to now. And so normally you got the blank canvas of the area, and you get 1 day to scope. So you get two diggers on your team. It's kind of changed throughout the years, but now it's teams of 3, an athlete, 2 diggers. You get 1 day, you go try and find a line on the mountain, and then you get 4 days to build it. There's a mandatory rest day, and then the next 4 days you're allowed to continue building and practice, and then the next day's finals.
And so, I guess, how much digging are you doing? Like, are you just, like you said, like, are you still, or maybe even how has that progressed? Like, when you first went, like you said, you're kind of just like kicking out some rocks, like saying, okay, I'm going to go here. Like, maybe some of the parts were even like first tracks on finals day or something like that. And then now there's like these like masterpieces on the side of hills. And so, like, how has the actual line building progressed, and like how much work are you guys putting in?
Oh yeah, it's progressed huge. You're up there on course like before the sun rises, and you're there until dark. Just massive days, and you're still just scrambling to the very end just to get everything done, let alone try and practice. Yeah, and there's been years that I haven't practiced like some of the most key important features on the line, and then it's just like, okay, just going for it, first try and you're run.
That's wild.
So it used to be a little more raw, and then when in like 2001 to 04, the very first years, it was very raw. They brought it back in 08. So it was about 08 to, I think, 2015. They started building pre-built features out there. So either they would build some landings or some wooden takeoffs. So that kind of helped a bit. But it wasn't until about like 2013 where guys actually started bringing diggers. you'd be out there basically just kind of doing it yourself. Maybe your team manager or your mechanic would be out there. And
Right.
so 2013 is kind of when it really changed and people actually started bringing full dig teams. Like I think Semenuk had like a team of 20 or something.
No way.
Oh yeah, dude. Like, and they would go at night with headlamps because it was
No
cooler.
way. Right.
They had
Yeah, totally.
rebar and 2x6s, and it's like everyone's there by themselves with their little rake or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So he
So
was ahead of the curve.
did it change the very next year? Like, did all the rules kind of come in place?
Yeah, I think the next year it was like 4 diggers.
Right.
Which was kind
Okay.
of nice, but still
Uh-huh.
scrambling to the bitter end to get anything
Yeah.
done. And then the courses, they usually do 2 or 3 years at the same venue. So, of course, a second year is going to be so much easier than the first year.
Right.
So, I've ran into that many times where the first year you're building to the very last day, trying to guinea pig everything that last day, and then right into finals where, for example, 2017 was a second year venue, and I had my line pretty much already from the year before, and
Yeah.
we got everything done in those first 4 days, and I was able to just like kind of more just conserve energy and just practice the next 4 days.
Right.
Where most years, like last year even, we're digging until dark the night before finals, and we have to guinea pig our last 2 big features of the line the morning before the event starts.
Is there ever any strategy? I remember maybe it was 2014 and 2015, like Zink didn't get his line done in 14 and then was like, okay, but I feel like he kind of knew that he couldn't do that and was like, I know that the next year is second year venue. Is that something that people kind of think about? Like, I'm going to go for the win like next year? Or is that not really a thing?
I don't know if you would do that on purpose, but
Yeah.
I think, by the, like, if the time's counting down, you're like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do what I want on this line. And then, it all comes down to like how you're feeling as well. Like, the toughest thing is just showing up to Rampage not injured or not having an injury from the year and just having a lot of practice, like, if you get injured in the summer or the beginning of the year, you're barely healed by the time Rampage rolls around, and you're trying to do like the biggest, most progressive stuff you've ever done in your life, and if you're just not feeling it, you're like, yeah, maybe I got to save that for next year, or you just got to see how you're feeling at the time, because same thing. Like 2016, really wanted to like backflip my big drop, but coming off an injury, guinea pigged everything the night before. Just there was like the time crunch was just too crazy. And then, the following year, I kind of knew what I needed to do, came in healthy, was practicing, showed up, and then just got to like hammer laps, and I was just ready for it, where, most of the time you're just scrambling just to make it down the mountain.
Right. Is there a build that you're like most proud of? Like,
yeah, totally. Definitely that 2016, 2017 line. That one was sweet, and then we went back to it 2021. So that's kind of a funny thing, when you've been competing in it long enough that like they're going back to old venues. It's kind of funny,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like ideally you're not going back to old venues, but of course it's tough to find those perfect venues. So that one, we were pretty stoked on. That was like mostly a line that we had built, and we teamed up with Agassi, and that was really good. Besides him having a big crash, that sucked. And 2018, 2019, I'm sure we'll go back to that venue one of these days, but that one was like really steep, really tall. We had like 2 massive drops, like we had scoped this one mid slope, something like 70 feet. And then at the bottom, there's like a 55-foot drop at the bottom. You're just like, holy, how did I
Oh
get
my
myself into this? Just like two massive drops. And yeah, you don't know, the wind is the biggest thing. You're managing wind a lot when you're trying to practice. So it's like early mornings and like late into the evenings, because it's usually going to be too hot and windy in the middle of the day.
Yeah, what is that vibe like? Because I've been a couple years. I dug for Bernard Kerr 2 years, and
Oh,
it
cool.
just it feels. I mean, we
What year was
didn't.
that?
I think that was 14 and 15.
Oh, okay.
And
Sorry.
it was like he didn't even. I remember I kept being like, "We can build more. Like we can kind of do this," and you'd be like, "I think it's all good." Like, I mean,
Right.
and you,
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
that's a huge thing, is making it safe.
right,
That's
right,
like,
right,
because yeah,
right,
because you don't want to waste time overbuilding something, because
right.
you have so much other stuff to work on, but you also want to make it fairly safe.
Yeah, there was. I mean, that was the thing. Like, there's jumps there that I mean, you guys would do every day of the week, but I remember one of the ones we built was kind of this like step down, and if you cased it and couldn't get your braking, you like ride off a cliff. And so if you just had this jump in the middle of a field or whatever, you would do it blind, like you wouldn't even think about
Yeah.
it. But because it was so exposed, like that to me is one of the things that is the most gnarly about it is there's so much precision. Like you're doing this huge stuff, but you almost just can't make a mistake as well.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be going off just perfect. And then, yeah, if you're offline a little bit, there's potentially a massive cliff, or, yeah, if you don't get your braking points, there's another cliff you could fall off of. Yeah.
Yeah, man. But it almost seems like this contest was like built for you. Like all of this experience, um, scouting out stuff, at home, traveling, things like that. Like growing up, was it something that you thought? Because your first year was 2008.
Yeah.
And was it something that you were like, oh, this is for sure the thing that I want to do out of anything? Or uh, how did it, I guess, feel for you kind of competing in it?
Yeah, like when I was first kind of getting into it, it was around the first couple rampages, and yeah, kind of had set the goal of wanting to go there, or the dream of maybe going there one day.
Mm-hmm.
But that, yeah, 2008, was doing a lot more slope style contests, and I remember showing up there just, yeah, terrified. It was so much gnarlier once you're actually setting foot on those hills.
For sure.
Yeah, so I just remember like, yeah, being terrified that first year in 2008, like, holy, like, so gnarly, just to find a way down the mountain. And then I was able to sneak, or like pull a run together, and snuck into qualifying. And then all of a sudden, yeah, I was in the finals. And it was one of those years that like the qualifying was on one side, then finals went to the other side. So
Mm-hmm.
yet again, we're like scrambling the night before to find a line on the finals venue, and there is the Canyon Gap.
Right.
So yeah, a little bit of like, you know, still like, yeah, dabbling in the big mountain quite a bit. Like, I was going to Kamloops quite a bit. Right, like in high school, and right out of high school, like moved there and was building all the snowboard style cheese wedges that
Yeah, right.
Kamloops is known for. So I absolutely love that stuff. So I was like drawn right to the Canyon Gap, even though the thing was terrifying and built kind of bad and gnarly. But
Yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah, scrambled a line together there, and yeah, ended up hitting the Canyon Gap, and getting a pretty solid first run down. And second run, I went to Superman it and crank spun and ended up just like landing on my seat, completely folding the seat like around the seat post, and
Oh my God.
but I was able to, I got second place that year, and I was like, okay, I guess I can do this, and
Yeah, what did that feel like?
it was pretty surreal for sure, like getting second place first Rampage. What was that? That was 08, so quite a while ago now. But it just I think also gave me a bit of the confidence to keep pushing, and
Right.
and then got a little more support. Yeah, so kind of just fueled that fire to keep pushing in that direction, even though I was until 2013 I was still doing all the slopestyle stuff as well.
And then in 2012 you won for the first time. Like 4 years later, did you expect to, come back the next year and win? Or I guess maybe talk to me a little bit about that little gap and then what it was like to win for the first time.
Yeah, they were doing the event only every other year for a few years. So then 2010 came back, and I was coming off an injury, and I think I got 10th or something. And then actually where the trail ends was starting, so I was lucky enough to get chosen to film that video, and it was a video traveling the world, finding the newest, best big mountain lines. So I'm traveling with Bear Claw, Cam Zink, Dorfling, Bueller, all those guys, and the McCalls, and we're traveling the world riding, looking for the gnarliest, best, big mountain lines. And so I had those 2 years kind of leading up to 2012, and I was just able to kind of hone in all that experience with all the tricks that I've been learning on the slopestyle scene and put it all together. And that was crazy.
Yeah, it's so wild. I just remember, not that you, well, it feels so appropriate that you had gotten all this practice, because it felt like you were so dialed that year. It felt like you made everything look easy riding. You had the super gnarly lines, and just everything was perfect. I don't know.
Yeah, things were progressing quite a bit. I think 2012 maybe was called the Evolution or something, and it was the first year. It was from the very top of the mountain.
Right.
So I was able to find a pretty cool kind of freeride line into it, and then just link it into the Oakley Sender and a couple other big hits and a few tricks, and flipped a step down, and I just was lucky enough to put all the pieces together. And it's kind of, you need a little bit of everything to get a winning run there. So it's just line choice is huge, and that line just worked out.
Yeah. Did you, at that point, was it pretty big, I guess, for your career? Because I think at that point, it feels like Rampage was it still is now to me, one of the biggest mountain biking events. When I tell people that I ride mountain bikes, they're like, oh, do you do that Red Bull Rampage stuff?
Usually it's the Red Bull. Do you do the Red Bull?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, when you get that question, do you say oh yeah, I won? What do people say?
Oh yeah, I don't know. I just like playing it off, because people be like, "Oh, you do that? That's crazy." And then
right.
Yeah, oh, man, you've won it? Yeah, a few times, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah, a couple times. What did that do for your career? After you won it in 2012?
Yeah, it definitely helped tons. It's funny, man. I know you know it too. You're only kind of as good as your last result, but it definitely that jump that. Yeah, helped a ton, and a lot more support. So that was cool. And then everything was going good, and then the Fest series was starting. Right. But I ended up, I went to the X Games. Actually, I was still training for X Games slope style.
How was that? What was the X Games like?
Oh my goodness, it was fun. The course was terrible. Just
Uh-huh.
like the last jump, like sunk in the pond that they built it
Oh
on,
yes. Yeah.
and I really like the course started with like a big drop, and then ended with a big drop, which I was stoked on. Like the big drop at the top, flip the big step down at the bottom, but all the stuff in between was like all this like techie, jibby
Right.
stuff, and wasn't really my forte. And I don't think anyone really liked it. It didn't flow well, and it
Mhm.
was it was kind of sad that it wasn't a little better showing for mountain biking as a whole.
Sure.
But I think in the end, it still was good, and we like dealt with crazy wind delays, and I think it was like the longest I'd been in my pads for, like from the morning to the evening, and
Right.
but it was cool. Like all the spectators, they hung around, and yeah, so it was just kind of funny that I was still trying to do that, and then I went to Crankworks like Joyride that same year. Had one of my better results there. I can't remember exactly, but top 10, and yeah, so I was still trying to kind of do it all, like filming Rampage, slope style, and then I ended up breaking my leg pretty bad, just like the week after Crankworks. Was gearing up for Bear Claw's Invitational, and we were just riding his local dirt jumps, and came in just like tired, traveling all day to get there, and just like was a little offline on one of the jumps, and there's a tree that comes right out of the landing. Smoked the tree, broke my leg, and that was just a bit. That was just like okay, like a biggest injury that I had. Like I'd done a lot of stuff, but that was like 9 months off the bike, and
Wow.
Just kind of when I decided to focus on the big mountain stuff, retired
Mm.
from the slope style scene, and it was kind of perfect timing with the Fest series starting. I was like, I just want to ride my downhill bike, free riding, and just kind of focus on that.
Do you feel like, I mean, you won Rampage again in 15 and 17. Um do you feel like now you can kind of just do Rampage as a contest? Like, I mean, I know you got second in like 2021. Like, is that, do you like doing that? Like, do you like it being like a main focus, or like kind of having to do that? Is there more pressure now that you are like one of the guys who is always a favorite?
I've never really tried to make it a focus at all. Actually, my main focus is the riding and the exploring and bringing bringing like the tricks and my own kind of style to the backcountry. And if you're riding that stuff really well, it translates to Rampage, and um, you know, it's I still train for it for sure. Like I, get in the gym beforehand and make sure I'm all ready for it. But it's not a focus for me. Um, you know, I definitely think if it was, I'd be approaching it a little bit differently. But my main focus is like I want to be in the backcountry. I want to be up in the mountains riding and finding cool new lines, building unique features, and then just taking that experience to Rampage and putting down what I think is going to be a fun line that's also going to push my riding. And if I win, great. If I don't, then I'm not too worried about it.
Right. I mean, I think that's super interesting because it I always think it's so hard as an athlete to keep that kind of process and mindset, because there's like a bunch of pressure, a bunch of people like asking like, oh, like this has got to be the thing, like, and if you focused on it, imagine how much better you would do. But at the same time, I like never really think that's true, because you get all of this experience, you love riding your bike still, like you get to keep the kind of like the passion for it. And like I was saying, I don't know like how much better training you could get than like traveling to these gnarly places, building these lines, and then coming to Rampage. Like I think for like you talked about how the initial impression of Rampage is just so gnarly. Like when I went, I've never seen anything like it. And I feel like when you go, you're already almost desensitized to looking at something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because you do get in the mindset like, well, yeah, once you do win, like it's true, like you get a lot more pressure from everywhere,
Yeah.
even yourself. So then you're there and you're looking for a line that's going to be a contender. You don't want to necessarily go there and not be a contender.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is up to line choice, whether, the line's going to have the right recipe for a win. So, and that's just like I was kind of saying in 2018, I was coming off 2017. You're like, okay, another win. And all of a sudden you got these two massive step downs in your line. And I was coming off an injury. And I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, but you're going there with the kind of the mindset, like, okay, I got to find the winning run.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're like, you're building it. And you're like, this thing is terrifying. Like, it's not even going to work. Like most of the time the builds don't even look like they're going to work until you're just about done them. You just got to keep like trusting, like, no, it's going to work. It's going to work. And then, finally kind of comes to light and is rideable. But, it's a bit of a tough one for sure.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. It's so cool to see though. So I want to just like quickly touch on kind of you outside of bikes, because it feels like you live these like pretty distinct seasons where you'll ride in like the summer, and then in the winter like you do a lot of snowboarding and sledding, and then you are super into surfing. And so like maybe just like touch on the two things I want to ask you about really is like the sledding and the surfing. Maybe we could talk about the surfing first, because it feels like you like do these like deliberate no bike trips to these like incredible tropical places. Like you've been to Nicaragua, Indonesia, El Salvador, Bali. Like tell me about those trips and like why you do them, and just a little bit about surfing.
Yeah, the first time I didn't travel with a bike was the winter of 2012 after I won Rampage the first time. Like, typically I'd be like, getting ready to go down to Cali or wherever to go kind of train most of the winter. And, a lot of friends were traveling, to Southeast Asia or Central America, and kind of always invited me, but I was like, just so focused on the bike stuff, really.
Mm-hmm.
And, so made it down to Costa Rica. I'm just like, all we were doing was just, traveling and surfing and I don't know, like, I think maybe having a bit of that snowboard background, and then something about surfing, just like, I don't know. I grew up on the lake. I just loved the water. Terrifying though, like growing up as an inlander, don't know anything about the ocean, and just so much to learn, I guess, as well. Like, and then the places it takes you, like you get to experience such cool different cultures and way of life, and
right.
And luckily a lot of these big mountain trips do the same. You get to go to these incredible places, and that's really, I think, kind of the best part of it. Like the biking and the surfing's, just like a bonus. But I definitely got the surf bug, and I was just like, we went biking in Chile, and I'm like, holy, Chile's got a big coastline. I better bring my wetsuit and surfboard.
No way, yeah.
So, and then end up like linking up with a pro surfer down there that also free ride mountain bikes, and so we're like free riding one day, surfing the next day for like 3 weeks.
Oh, that's so cool. How does that feel like? Because I know how hard it is kind of doing a deliberate non-bike trip, or even if you are on a bike trip, like making time to do something else, like almost like the anxiety of like not having a bike, or like having to kind of like turn off.
Yeah, big time. Well, yeah, it's tough. Yeah, the biking just takes up all your spare time, really. So trying to figure out, yeah, ways to take a little break whenever you can. And yeah, and like I'm sure, just like all the little injuries and all the maintenance, it's this constant work. You got to be making sure you're in the best shape as you can be to perform how you want to be, because it's never fun when you can't really perform to the standards you want to. So yeah, I think I've been doing it a long time too, so I think the little breaks are great. It's definitely tough, especially because you got to be so consistent with content these days. But at the same time, it's pretty easy to backlog and then do all that. But yeah, I think like even with the sledding, like just like I love just like learning a new sport or learning anything new. Even in the backcountry, you're learning new survival skills, and just you feel a little more connected to the wild, and like you could actually kind of survive on your own. And surfing your own, it's kind of like similar to looking for big lines. Looking for waves is so tough, and then you gotta there's so much that goes into it. And no different than like snowboarding or sledding. You gotta really know the mountains, you gotta know the snow. And then just like learning all the little techniques. Like growing up biking, I wouldn't say I know all the perfect little, like, I could have probably used a little bit more racing and all that stuff in my upbringing, but yeah, just like not knowing how to even turn your surfboard or something. You're like, why is this so foreign? Or like, why can't I do this? Like the pros make it look so easy.
Yeah.
So just, I don't know, learning a new sport and just like, but I think just being in the areas where it takes you, like that's the cool thing about sledding and snowboarding too. Like a lot of the winters down in town, you'll be completely socked in from the clouds, but if you get up high, you're in the sunshine. And
that's so cool. I mean, it's so wild. I think seeing I think athletes do different sports, but also like how quickly they pick it up, because even just saying like, oh, I know that I can't turn, you know what I mean? Like I know it's supposed to feel a certain way. I can like see somebody else do it, and kind of just like looking for that thing. I think the learning, like you said, is a super cool thing. So it's like it's been really cool to kind of watch you do that. I need to follow your lead and get me to a tropical beach.
Yeah, I know that the surf life's pretty amazing, but I don't know. I've been trying to like figure out ways where I can go biking and surfing in the same trip.
Yeah,
that's kind of my new goal.
Yeah, right. All right, Kurt. So we just have a couple bonus questions here to finish things off. I read a little interview of yours about this first question, so I'm kind of interested to hear your answer. When you first started riding bikes, what did you at first think was impossible that today you think is easy?
Oh wow! I was thinking everything was going to be impossible. It's crazy. You're like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do a backflip or anything like that. But yeah, just with enough practice, like all these tricks, I was like, oh, there's no way. Like it feels so hard, like to try and learn, or I don't know how you even figure that out. But now you got kids that are, not even 10 yet, and they're doing all the way crazier tricks than I can even do now. So I just remembered just doing that. I won't be able to do whatever, a backflip, no hander, and then you put in the time, and all of a sudden it's like not that hard. Or
That still seems like literally impossible to me, but sure, backflip no handers, no worries.
Yeah.
What is one thing that you want to do for yourself this year?
For myself this year, what do I want to do? Well, I'm kind of gearing up. It's been kind of on my list for a while. I'm just gonna go spend the next few weeks, like a month, up in the mountains, just riding big lines and building and riding jumps. So that's just something I'm gonna do for myself.
I love it. And our last traditional closing question is, who inspires you?
Oh wow. Who inspires me? I'm inspired by a lot. I don't know. I love mountain biking. I love following it. Definitely, I love following other sports. Like dirt biking, BMX, sledding, the surfing, all that stuff really inspires me. But I don't know. It's a good question where I really pull it from. Like I think the snowboard world. I feel like if you could ride a mountain on your bike like you could on a snowboard, that would be pretty incredible. So, there's a lot of guys out there that I'm really love watching. Yeah, and then I don't know, just like I think friends like inspire me, and the adventure people as well. Definitely didn't like grow up like I was in the Boy Scouts, but definitely didn't grow up in the outdoors a ton. We'd go camping and all that stuff, but those people that really go on those crazy missions, they're very inspiring. It's like, okay, I can take my bike and I can go live in the mountains for a little while and ride down some hills. Can't be that hard.
Totally. Oh, that's so cool. Well, thank you so much, Kurt. This has been amazing. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man. Good to chat with you.
You've been listening to You Inspire Us, a podcast brought to you by Thule. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast so that you never miss an episode. Learn more about Thule's ambassadors and get behind-the-scenes content by following us on Instagram @Thule or on Facebook at facebook.com/Thule. This episode was hosted by me and produced by Saga Ringmar. Lena Nilsson assisted on booking guests. Cover art was created by Martin Bergstrom, and intro and outro music were written by Klubin. A special thanks to our executive producer, Tina Lasilius. Thanks for listening.